The Ink and Paint Club podcast is intended for mature audiences. I know we're usually talking about kids' cartoons and stuff, but there's going to be naughty language. Anyway, listener discretion is advised.
You're listening to the Ink and Paint Club podcast, a proud member of the Geekly Grind podcast network.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ink and Paint Club podcast. My name is JD. It is just me and my good friend Matt tonight.
Hello.
And we are talking about one of the most classic animes that I'm sure if you are any kind of anime fan, you have seen. If not, I'm just going to say right now, this is a staple of anime, at least here in America, so you should go seek it out. But we are talking about Cowboy Bebop. Mostly we're talking about this because it is the anniversary of Adult Swim around this time this year. It is now 20 years old. And Cowboy Bebop was one of the shows that aired on the first night of Adult Swim, along with like Harvey Birdman, Home Movies, and Bracket C-Lab. It was just a very weird that we have all these weird stoner comedies, and then we have like what has become one of the most influential animes of our time.
Yeah.
In there. So I'm just gonna say right up front, I have seen Cowboy Bebop before in pieces. I have never. This is my first time watching through it all in its entirety. So there were a handful of episodes I'd never seen. So it's now that I finally know the entire scope of this show, because we are going to be talking about the show and the movie.
Which is also celebrating its actual 20th anniversary of its release in Japan. So this show is kind of encompassing two different anniversaries for different ways.
Mm-hmm. So I guess we can kind of talk about it like how we discovered it initially. Obviously, I'm sure we both caught it on Adult Swim back in the day.
Oh yeah.
I remember flipping channels and landing on Adult Swim, which happened a lot, honestly, because I was always up late and I had free access to cable after my parents went to bed because I had my own TV in my room. So I probably watched a lot of things I shouldn't have, but I caught the first episode of Cowboy Bebop and thought it was like what is this show? This is like nothing like the other cartoons I've seen. You're gonna laugh at this because this is I saw this. I had to be like between the ages of 8 and 10 when this happened.
Right.
I legitimately thought for a while that Spike Spiegel was actually Ty from Digimon grown up, and I always wondered like, why is he in space and why is his hair green?
What made you make that connection? I wonder.
Honestly, it's their hair because they have a very similar hairstyle. It's
they got
very
the anime hair.
They have like very bushy going off to the side hairs. And again, I was like 8 or 10 when I thought this, so I was stupid. Obviously, I recognize very soon after, like, no, these are different shows and different universes. They have nothing to do with each other. But yeah, so that's kind of how I discovered it. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely on Adult Swim. I couldn't tell you exactly when, because like it wasn't like the first time it aired or anything like that. Yeah, I don't know. It was absolutely on Adult Swim, but I couldn't tell you what episode was my first or like when exactly that I saw it. But just I know that I probably didn't catch all of the episodes originally as they aired. And actually, this is an interesting thing that I noted was when Adult Swim did its airing of Cowboy Bebop initially, they actually skipped over a few episodes.
Yeah. Because,
when Adult Swim debuted, it was on September 2nd, 2001. And so, 9 days later, there'd be the World Trade Center thing that happened in America. So a lot of, media was getting, censored or cut or whatever around that time. So, there was 3 episodes that Adult Swim did not air in the first or second run-throughs of Bebop. But once they got to the third run-through, they included them back in. So they were able to air every single episode finally.
Interesting.
Yeah, specifically, it was the episodes where, because when I saw that note about it, it just said for specific types of content. You can kind of guess like what kind of content, but it was episodes 6, 8, and 22, and so respectively, those are the episodes with the kid who's actually like an old guy, the guy that's trying to steal the plant to fix his sister's eyes,
Mm-hmm.
and then the one with the Teddy Bomber. And so the Teddy
Yeah, I
Bomber
can
one,
definitely see why that one was cut.
the Teddy Bomber one makes sense. I couldn't remember what specific instances in those other two might have caused them to be censored, but it wasn't exactly as far as the censorship and stuff around that time. Not all of it always made sense. Like I think just to avoid any sort of potential links to what happened and everything.
Bombings and all that stuff, yeah.
Yeah, just I guess explosions or buildings falling down and stuff. Like I guess just that sort of thing.
Right.
Yeah. So then that was interesting. I did not know that it took until the third run through of the show for them to actually air all the episodes.
Yeah, I had no idea. So if you haven't seen Bebop, it's a interesting show. Like its premise is on the surface very simple. It is bounty hunters in space.
What's funny is that I found out that originally the show was developed to just be specifically a revolving more about like the space travel aspect of the show.
Mm.
Because apparently the idea for the show was conceived by Bandai, and it was for specifically for the goal of wanting to sell spaceship toys. So when Shinichiro Watanabe, the director of the show, started, working on the show, conceiving it, doing the production and all that, and like it was starting to turn into what Bebop became, Bandai just sort of like, oh, you know what, this is kind of not the show that we were kind of wanting to make toys of, so we're gonna back out. They're sponsoring and everything, but Bandai Visual filled the sponsorship role, so Watanabe was able to just kind of make the type of show that he wanted to make without having to give too many concessions, which is cool.
Yeah, that's great, because like this show has such a style of its own. It just like oozes aesthetic. I love the world that it builds up over the 26 episodes of the movie.
Would it be surprised to tell you that the show is inspired by Lupin the Third?
No, I can buy that.
Yeah, especially just in kind of Spike's body form. He's just very like tall and kind of lanky a bit.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, like even like in the main opening, which we'll talk about the fucking opening of this show because that's a whole thing on its own.
Oh yeah.
The little silhouette of Spike doing his weird like dance, or just they have like a shot of him like doing a weird thing with his legs, and like that's very Lupin-esque.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like, so this show takes place, I think, in the 2070s. So about 50 years from where we are now.
Yeah.
And humankind has, like, after an accident of that basically we started making hyperspace gates so that we could travel the galaxy easier. There was an accident which basically caused a major catastrophe on Earth. Earth is practically unlivable. The people who still live on Earth mostly live underground. But humankind has spread out to the rest of the galaxy. So people are somehow living on Venus. We have Mars colonies. We have Saturn and Jupiter moon colonies. There's people living on asteroids. And it's just normal that people like just travel space now. You can do deliveries, and just normal life is just more spread out to these planets and asteroids and moons.
But the big thing is that crime is way up.
Crime is way up. But that kind of leads into the burgeoning profession of being a bounty hunter, where the government will issue these bounties on various criminals for various amounts of dollars, called woolongs,
which I think my friend looked that up, and apparently it's one wulong is equivalent to 1 penny.
Okay.
So I think like in the movie, like the villain of the movie is like 300 million Wulongs, so that
Mhm.
sets up like 3 million Wulongs, I think.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, or
Um.
$3 million. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. So, we're kind of the show follows a group of bounty hunters. Obviously, we have Spike Spiegel, who even if you haven't seen Cowboy Bebop, I'm pretty sure you know who Spike is.
Yeah.
You've seen Spike before. Who is who I did you watch the dub or the sub of this?
Oh, the dub, of
Okay,
course.
definitely.
I've seen the movie with the Japanese dub because I've seen the movie twice in theaters, and the very first time I saw it, they were playing the Japanese version, and then the second time I saw it was the dub. But that's the only time I've ever watched Cowboy Bebop with the original audio, and it was so strange.
Yeah, I honestly feel because the way it was brought over here to America that I almost feel like this is the one anime that like you really should absolutely watch the dub of it. Spike is played perfectly by Stephen Bloom, who
This is like his first big role, I think.
yeah, I think so. Because around this time, I think was when it was either around this time or just before when he took over as Tom from Toonami. But yeah, like Steve Bloom has become like a major actor in like anime voice acting and just voice acting in general. But this is like one of his most iconic roles. There's
Yeah,
even
they even reference it like in his role as Tom occasionally.
yeah, because the fucking speech he gives when Toonami went off the air the first time, he makes a Spike Spiegel reference right at the end.
Yeah.
And I also thought it was really funny that he plays a character on regular show, and there's a Halloween episode where they dress his character up like Spike.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Well, that's fun.
and I
no
mean
idea.
it is just Spike. It's his costume and his hair and everything. It's hilarious. But we've got Spike, who is a former member of a crime syndicate. He has since left that and become a bounty hunter. He's paired up with a man named Jet Black, who is a former police officer who left after an accident which caused him to lose his left arm. So we have functioning robot arms in the future, as well as space travel.
Yeah.
They also meet Faye Valentine, who is an amnesiac who was pulled out of cryo sleep. And she's also basically become a con artist, bounty hunter. And then about 9 or 10 episodes in, we are introduced to
Edward Wong Howe Pepelu Tivrutsky IV.
Ed, who is this
word.
Yeah, who is this very odd girl, like preteen girl who is like a master hacker and can hack into literally anything. But
she's the best character.
She's got a few screw looses, to say the least.
And she's voiced by Melissa Fawn, who, when I found out years later that she voiced Gaz in Invader Zim, and that was so surprising to me because like they don't sound anything alike. And then like years after that, when I found out that she voices Dendi in OKKO, I'm like, oh my god, she voices like 3 of my favorite characters in these 3 shows. Like, so I'm trying to keep like an ear out every time like I watch something now to see if she shows up in something.
Yeah, I mostly knew her because she played Rika on the 3rd season of Digimon, and actually, I have an autograph from her that my friend got for me on my wall that I'm looking at right now.
Oh, cool.
So her Rika signed picture is right above Colleen O'Shaughnessy's Sora picture.
Nice.
So, but yeah,
and we are forgetting a very important member of the crew.
And we'd be remiss to not mention Ein, who is their resident
good boy.
Is Ein a boy or a girl? I never really understood that.
I think Ein is a boy. I think so.
Okay. Yeah,
Ein's a data dog.
Yeah, Ein is like a dog that was experimented on and was given like hired intelligence. So like it has near human level intelligence, but it is also just a dog.
Yeah, and can only still do
dog things.
Yeah, so there are certain instances where Ein is able to get certain points across when it's like, hey, there's danger here, or that sort of thing.
I
But
like when
yeah, so-
I like when Ein answers the phone.
yeah.
Because it's like, wait, Ein, why the fuck are you on the phone?
I meant to ask, when you did your watch through, did they have the previews for like the next episode?
They did. I did not watch them. I
Okay.
skipped over, but yeah, every the preview at the end of episode is just like the characters just talking to each other about the next episode.
Yeah, well, or sometimes not even talking about the episode at all. But it's funny because there is one, I can't remember which episode it's for, but Spike has Ein do it, and so it's just making like dog noises throughout the whole thing, and then at the very end actually says the name of the episode, like half like barking, half talking, and Spike's just like, did I just talk? Like, it's really funny.
Yeah. I listened. So I was watching this on the Funimation app, and yeah, just because I was trying to burn through this over the last 2 weeks, I skipped the episode previews because obviously it's not really conducive if you're binge watching something.
Did you skip the intros and outros?
The outro, yes. I watched Tank a few times.
But you
But
didn't watch every single time?
I didn't watch it every time. I watched it the first time, and then like about every maybe 6 or 7 episodes, I'd watch it again.
Get a load of this fake fan over here.
No. But yeah, so we're following this group of this very ragtag group of bounty hunters and misfits as they travel all over the galaxy, hunting down criminals. You're learning more about their individual pasts and just having goofy ass adventures with occasional plot happening.
Yeah. You mentioned the stuff about the syndicate with Spike, and honestly, out of the 26 episodes and even the movie, they only really touch on that stuff like
3 times,
3 or 4 times.
It's pretty much anytime Vicious shows up, which is like 3 times.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that's very important to the ending of the show for sure. But yeah, you the way that Wikipedia puts it, like the main story portion of the show is dedicated to this. I'm just like, not really. It doesn't even take up the majority of episodes. Like,
I liken it to how fucking Teen Titans had an overarching plot for like the first 2 seasons, where they would dedicate 3 episodes of a 13 episode season to the overarching plot. The rest of it is just dumb adventures.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, with shows that go on for more than 1 season, of course, you'd have different, I imagine if Bebop would have, if it were envisioned to have gone on longer, they would have had more episodes kind of dedicated to that sort of thing. And this is actually something that, because we're definitely going to touch on the upcoming live show at some point in this show, so I'll definitely bring it up then, that they might, spend more time on it there. But
yeah. But yeah, we learn more about Spike's past in the Syndicate. We learn about Jet's life as a cop because he's constantly reaching out to his old cop buddies for information. We learn about like what's Faye's deal.
Like, who was she?
Who was she?
Sleep.
Yeah, we get hints of that. We don't really get any information on Ed's backstory until like
a little bit.
1 episode where we meet her dad.
Yeah, and ultimately it's the episode where she leaves too.
Peace out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think she leaves just before the 2-part finale, right?
Yeah. She leaves in like episode 24 and just
Yeah.
pieces out. Just says she doesn't even really say goodbye. She writes goodbye on the ship and like just pieces out with the dog.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So Ein leaves the show around that time too. Yeah. That's
because
right.
like she's gonna leave and like Ein is like chasing after her. She's like, no, I need to go back to the ship. You need to like be with everybody else. And Ein's like being really insistent about going with her. She's like, okay, you can come with me. And they just walk off into the sunset.
Okay, so it's something I just remembered because Ein got brought up. I'm not sure if you've ever heard this or seen screen caps of it, but back in the day when I think it was before Bebop got its dub, when there was just like bootleg subs going around for the show, like before it hit America. Apparently, if I have my story right, this is just a story that my friend always tells me when Bebop gets brought up. The sub for the show, whenever Ein would bark on screen, it would read with the subtitle Rice. So it would, every time he barked, it would say Rice.
That's funny.
It's really funny. I have no idea why, but it's a funny little thing I thought I'd mention.
But yeah, like I said earlier, like I genuinely love the world that this show builds, having humanity just like spread out around the solar system. It is a little jarring because sometimes I can't tell what planet they're on just by looking at it, because pretty
Yeah.
much everything starts to look like Earth after a while.
Yeah, because I mean,
Except they're never on Earth, except for like 2 episodes.
yeah, and Earth's just completely fucked.
Yeah, Earth is a dump right now. It is in pieces, and meteors keep falling from the sky.
Yeah. I definitely, yeah, the world building and just like how everything is, it just has like, it's just built in, like, you could tell that like even, being in the future, like they feel like they've been lived in for like, such a certain amount of time. Like,
like the world feels junky.
Yeah.
Like it, like you said, it feels lived in. Like a lot of it is just like very average or run down. Like we visit a lot of slums, whether it's on Mars or an asteroid or a moon.
Yeah.
Which obviously we're dealing with criminals and bounty hunters, so obviously that's where they're gonna lay low and stuff. But no, it's just it's such a very interesting world they built. I love how junky all the ships are. Like it's not like Star Trek or anything. Like it looks like we built this with like scrap metal and duct tape.
Yeah.
And everything is constantly falling apart.
Well, the other thing too is just like, and you see this a ton of this show, like, and there's actually one specific episode that you see like a really great examples of it. It's I think it's the episode Heavy Metal Queen.
Yeah,
and,
space truckers.
Yeah, so you see all these shots of all these people in their ships, and like everything is like, all their ships are like decorated with like things that are like, you catch one look at it and it's like you can easily tell who these people are after only seeing them for like a few seconds. Like like tons of characters on this show like could easily like have had episodes just revolving just around, like they're just so there's like a lot of thought put into it.
Mm-hmm.
Like tons of thought, and like, it's just one of those things where, yeah, like you said, it's just the world building. It's incredible in this show.
Yeah, it's it just so many interesting ideas of like, and it really takes like I feel almost a realistic approach to like, okay, this is the slightly distant future. Of course, this was written back in the late 90s, so this is a late 90s opinion of what like 2070 is going to be like. Obviously, I don't think we're anywhere near that kind of stuff, but well,
as far as the Earth being how it is, we might be on track for that.
Yeah, maybe, but in terms of like colonizing space, I don't know if we're going to get there in 50 years, but it seems like a very realistic kind of take on like what humanity would be like if we did branch out to the neighboring planets and moons. It feels very Earth-like where they are. They somehow terraformed a lot of it. People live in these weird, they're not domes, but like,
well, sometimes they're domes.
Well, it's weird because like, and they never really explained how it works, which you don't really need to, I guess. But I specifically remember they go to a city on Mars, and the city is inside a crater, but around the rim of the crater, there's like air vents just shooting air up, and that's like, I guess, making a dome for everyone to live in. So I don't know, but they make it work somehow. People living in not Earth conditions.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, like there's so many characters that like could have their own episodes, and they just kind of end up being one-offs. I do want to make mention of the 3 old men that just show up all the goddamn time anywhere the crew is.
Yeah, and they show up in the movie too. They actually have
sure
like
do.
they actually have a permanent role in that.
Yeah, and it's like no matter where they are, it's like they're on Mars, they're on an asteroid thing, they're in a weird hippie colony. They just show up everywhere, and they're usually just sitting around playing cards. And I love them because it's like like they're all senile.
Yeah.
And they're always just like going on about things they did, and like, you didn't do that, we all did that, and you're remembering it wrong. And then there's one of the guys like, did we do that? I fucking love those old guys.
Yeah, they're great.
Every time they showed up.
2 other characters that show up a lot in these episodes are we get a glimpse into a television show in the universe every now and then called Big Shot. which
Oh,
has
yeah.
the characters Punch and Judy, who kind of detail who the bounty that the Bebop crew is going after in that episode, and
And they're dressed like old timey cowboys.
yeah, riding like a little like fake horses and
I fucking loved when I got to the end and when their show gets canceled.
yeah.
And then you see Punch out in the real world when he meets his mom at the airport and he just talks normally.
Yeah, and it was like, his mom's asking about like, how the show or it was the last job. If you got a better job than the last one, blah 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 blah. Like,
Well, like he's like, no, I'm working on it. It's like, what happened to what happened to your co-host? Like, oh, I think she's marrying your agent or something.
yeah. Well, it's funny too, is because the Judy like
Breaks character.
Yeah, you catch a glimpse of her actual personality like when the show gets canceled
She
too.
gets all pissed off.
Yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I love anytime they're like just watching this fucking show to get like information on like what bounties they should go after.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny, like they even get into like, okay, what is entertainment like in this world? And like we apparently have just like it seems like very 90s television, the way that like the channel number is up in the corner of the screen.
Friend was noting how he was surprised that they actually didn't have like the local time like in the corner too, because I guess that's like a thing in Japan.
Yeah, it's like I don't know, it just seemed like kind of more American.
Oh boy,
TV.
there's an episode about TV in this show that's
Dude, the fucking thing. I fucking died. The episode where they have to where they get mailed a Betamax tape and they have no idea what the fuck it is.
Oh right, yeah, no, that wasn't even the episode I was talking about.
Oh,
I totally
shit.
forgot. No, I was talking about the like the cult episode where
Oh
they're
yeah.
like being hypnotized by the screens and all that shit. But yeah, no, that too. Yeah, they're having to like go through like old broken down malls and try to find like a Betamax player, and they end up picking up a VHS player that can't play the tape.
I love the scene where it's like they get the Betamax tape and like it's like, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't know. And I love that Spike just starts taking the tape out of it, and I'm like, no, Spike, it's gonna ruin it.
Yeah, there's a guy there who's trying to preserve the fucking
There's this fucking fat ass nerd who like lives in a little shop, and he's like trying to preserve all of this like ancient technology from like the fucking 20th century. So he's got like a shop full of VCRs and Betamax things and like fucking tube TVs.
Yeah,
and like the fucking tape, they take him this tape to figure out what's on it, and like it starts skipping, and he's like, oh yeah, it kind of sometimes the tracking on this doesn't work, and Spike just starts kicking the shit out of it. Like he has no patience for this analog technology, but yeah, I fucking love they like have to go into this old catacomb to find a bunch of like old left behind tape players, and they come back. And Ed's like, yeah, you can't do that. It's a VCR.
Yeah, because like the cassette tape doesn't actually fit in the device. Like,
and it's even made more hilarious by literally the next day they're mailed. The same person who mailed them the Betamax tape mails them the Betamax player.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That one's a good one. Yeah. So I know that I've like before we start talking about kind of like the rest of the episodes, really. I know that I've asked you in the past, or the topic has come up in the past, and you've always said that it's not really a thing that you pay attention to, but the music in this show.
Okay, so yeah, I have mentioned that a lot of the time when I'm watching things, music is a very secondary thing for me. In fact, it's most something I don't pay attention to, but music is so integral to this show.
Yeah.
That the soundtrack to this show fucking slaps.
It's amazing, and it's all done by fucking one group.
Yeah, but and that's so interesting because I feel like it covers a pretty wide variety of music genres. There's a lot of jazz pieces, a lot like really fast jazz during fights or chases. You got some slow jazz in there.
You got some bluesy type stuff. You got some hard rock. You've got like some rap here and there, like in the movie, especially. They cover like a ton of different genres, and yeah, that's definitely one of the aspects of the show that a lot of people look on the most fondly is Yoko Kanno and the Seatbelts' contributions to the soundtrack. It's incredible. It's like probably one of the greatest soundtracks in like all of anime.
Oh, I hands down, yeah, for sure. And I guess this would be a good time to talk about it. I mean, it is made all the more impressive by the fucking opener to Cowboy Bebop, which is one of the most banging anime openings I can think of. Not just because of its music, but also its visuals. But they pair so well together.
Yeah, no, it's incredible.
Tank, like the second, like because we had that smooth intro. It was just the bongos and the guys just like talking about, let's get into this. But like as soon as it kicks off, like you're ready to roll. Like let's fucking do this.
Yeah.
And just like these very interesting, graphic, animation and shots of like the ships and the characters. Like a lot of the character animations, like in silhouette. It's just a very cool opening.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the best openings out there for sure.
Oh yeah,
you're gonna catch a lot of that. Me saying that it's just like and I don't know. I'm very entry level when it kind of comes to anime. Not to say that I haven't explored like other not well known things, but the majority of anime that I've seen is kind of stuff that if somebody asks like oh, what's the most popular anime, like but I mean I feel like even taking that into consideration, even the most hardcore diehard dedicated anime fans that have seen like everything like popular and underground and everything will still say that in a lot of aspects and just in general that Bebop is one of the all-time greats.
Yeah, it is definitely high up in the pantheon of anime. I somewhat feel that it's partially responsible for when it came out, how it came out, especially over here in America. But I just watched through the entire thing. Even 20 years later, this show holds up entirely. Maybe even more so. The animation is still amazing in every episode. Everything, like especially the fight scenes and especially like the ship battles, everything is so smooth and so detailed. The writing and the dialogue is very clever a lot of the time. It's very fun.
Plus, just like the general themes of the episodes that they kind of tackle.
Yeah.
A lot of it having to do with kind of, like we're out in the stars now, but everyone's like lonelier than ever. Everyone's spread out. Everyone's, suffering from something. If it's, if you don't got a bounty on your head, you're in debt. Or if you're not in debt, you're depressed. Or everyone's like in a tough spot in this universe.
It's like we spread out so much that everyone is now just trying to find a place to belong.
Yeah.
Which I think especially in this day and age we can all kind of relate to.
Yeah, totally.
Jeremy Snow here, owner and editor-in-chief of The Geekly Grind. I'm interrupting your awesome, regularly scheduled programming to ensure that you know about our Geekly Grind podcast network, of which this show is a treasured member of. If you haven't had a chance to check out our site, you can do so at www.thegeeklygrind.com, and while you're there, check out the other members of our steadily growing podcast family, including the anime-centric Blake and Spencer Get Jumped, discovering new heroes and comic book keepers with Chris and Lance, exploring the vast universe of geekdom with Geeksploration, or of course appreciating animation's finer details with the Ink and Paint Club. Escape your weekly grind at The Geekly Grind.
I don't know if maybe we just kind of want to talk about some of our favorite episodes.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely say that there's like not a bad episode in the bunch. Like, even some of the episodes that aren't as good as some of the other episodes are still, like great. Like, but there's definitely definitely some standout episodes.
Yeah, I wouldn't say there's any episode that I was like bored by. Like everything, even some of the slower paced episodes, like it's still intriguing enough with its story ideas that like I'm still like invested.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we can kind of start off with probably the most famous episode is fucking Mushroom Samba.
Yeah.
Where literally you could just say the mushroom episode.
Yeah, and everyone will know what the hell you're talking
exactly. I'm pretty sure it's the one everybody's seen if you've seen an episode of this. And it's just like they get down to this planet trying to track down this. Well, they go down to this planet because they get it's a hit and run by this guy who turns out to be an illegal mushroom dealer who sells hallucinogenic mushrooms.
And also they're like starving because they haven't eaten in like days.
Yeah. So Ed somehow ends up with a whole bag of mushrooms and just leaves. It's so fucked up actually because Ed, like Ein ends up eating one of the mushrooms and starts like doing this weird. He just starts hopping and borking periodically.
Yeah.
And like Ed even recognizes like, oh, these probably aren't good mushrooms. But proceeds to secretly feed them to the rest of the crew just to see what'll happen.
And it all affects them in different ways. You have like Jets in his like little greenhouse room where he's talking to his plants and
he's learning the secrets of the universe, man.
Yeah. And then what was Faye's thing? She was like
Faye's in the bathroom and she thinks she's swimming, so she's doing weird like stroking motions in the air.
And then Spike is like climbing the same like 10-step staircase for like hours.
Well, he's not even climbing the stairs. He's literally just walking on a step.
And but like he thinks that he's going up this giant like Super Mario 64 staircase.
He's walking the stairway to heaven, man. The little I forget there's a little creature in there that like tells him about it, and he just keeps walking. He's like, "All right, man, I warned you." And then it just zooms out to Ed watching Spike, and he's literally just on the same step, just shuffling it in place.
Well, and the other part of this episode, too, is that there's like already, of course, this separate side plot happening with these characters that we see periodically of like, you know, these other people that got shafted by this mushroom dealer that are already trying to hunt them. And and so this is kind of harkening back to what I was talking about earlier, how everything is so developed in such a way that it's, you know, and a lot of times you're watching a show, it's like, oh, okay, this character shows up and this stuff happens, whatever. But in Bebop, it feels like, oh, this is stuff happening in an entirely different show that I could easily imagine what it's like just from how intricately these characters are detailed, just in their design and their mannerisms and stuff. Like, I can easily see what was happening with them before the Bebop crew showed up, and I can easily see where it's gonna go after they leave this episode. Like,
right,
you could easily see like any of these characters, like, and this is another thing too. Bebop never got like any spinoffs or anything. Like, it had the show, it had the movie, and then nothing up until that upcoming live action show. But there's been like there was no continuations with the characters that are still there by the end of the show. There's no spinoff, so like any of the side characters show up in the show, even though they could have easily done it for a lot of these different characters. Like even just like the space truckers alone, like that would have been something I'd absolutely have watched. Like,
sure, yeah.
But yeah, no, it's that's just a great example too of just how everything how well developed everything is. Aside from, I feel like there's 3 specific episodes that people bring up with Bebop. So the Mushroom Samba one is definitely one of them. The second one is, I think if you tell people the fridge episode, the episode with the blob that escapes from the fridge, like I can't remember exactly what the dish was that Spike left in Spike got this food and left it in a fridge in the back of the ship for so long that it like mutated into like this creature that is like infecting the Bebop crew.
It's like it like injects poison into them.
And so like everyone's sick by the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And then Ed just goes and eats it. Like,
Ed
is like sleeping in 0G, just like floating around, and the fucking blob's about to attack her, and she just like in her sleep snatches it like before it gets her and just eats it. Like,
she thinks it's pudding.
Yeah, that's what it was.
But
yeah, so there's that one, and then I feel like the third episode, if you tell people the clown episode, which is not to say that the character's actually a clown, but it's the name of the episode is I think Puro Le Fou, Requiem for a Clown. And so that's the episode with the dude who's like completely.
Wait, did you see? I thought you said the third episode.
No, I mean the third episode that people bring up for the show.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, with the fucking crazy assassin dude.
Yeah, who's like complete, who's wearing
That
like a
episode is
suit.
is kind of legitimately terrifying.
Oh yeah, and I feel like Adult Swim played this episode a lot back when they were airing Bebop.
This was one of the episodes I'd never seen before.
Really? Oh my god.
I'd never seen it before, and like the fact that he's just like he's a weird assassin that turns out he was like being experimented on to the point where it like drove him insane. Now he's just dressed up like a proper gentleman, but he like
It's also
like
an orb.
yeah, he has the ability to like weirdly weightlessly float around, but he also has a coat full of guns.
Yeah.
Carries a cane around that's a shotgun. And he like murders a bunch of dudes, but Spike just happens to be there at the wrong time, and he's just like the assassin gets wind of him, and apparently no one who ever sees the face of this assassin lives to tell about it. So he just relentlessly hunts Spike down for the rest of the episode.
Yeah.
And they end up in like this really like weird Disneyland-esque amusement park, and it's fucking creepy.
Yeah, no, it just paired with that music that plays like in the theme park. It's just and the visuals, just how dark it is, and just like everything that leads up to that. Bebop doesn't like get bloody all the time, but like when it does, it gets really fucking bloody. Like there's this episode, and then there's the episode with the with like it was like a serial killer like on a spaceship that Jet like put away back in the day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that one gets pretty bloody too, and then here and there. But this episode, The Requiem for a Clown, is like it's definitely in terms of general vibe and content is like unlike a lot of the other episodes.
Yeah,
it's like the one horror episode. Aside from like the thing from the fridge, I guess that one is technically like
that one. I feel like that was more comedic. This one is like legitimately scary.
Yeah. And that's another thing we should definitely bring up too, is that I feel like this show strikes a very good balance between humor and being serious.
Yeah, like when it needs to be serious and get dramatic, like it is good. But like, especially when you have like the banter between the Bebop crew, it is legitimately funny.
Yeah.
Just because Spike is like, he's very suave, very confident, but he's also a moron.
Yeah.
And Jet is just like the team dad who's just sick of everyone's shit.
Oh god, yeah. And it's funny, my friend brought it up. It's like I feel like most of the characters there kind of get their arcs like resolved like near the end of the show, but Jet's is kind of like resolved a little bit earlier than everyone else's. So most of the show is him spent just like complaining about the rest of the Bebop crew.
Pretty much. I think I want to talk about, at least for a few minutes, about the very first episode, because this is my first introduction to it, and like, man, it is such a great episode just to hit the ground running on this, to like get you introduced to this world, have like amazing action. I don't know, man, like this is just a great introduction to this. It's like Spike is literally trying to hunt down this drug dealer who like is he like sells this drug called Bloody Eye, and it comes up a couple times in the show.
Yeah.
Which is weird because when I first watched the episode, I'm like, oh, okay, this is just a one-off thing, and then it just keeps popping up with different people. I'm like, oh, this is apparently a bigger problem than I thought.
Yeah.
And it's literally just like this drug dealer and his girlfriend, and they're trying to smuggle all of these drugs off world, and like so they can get rid of it and just like kind of live a normal life. But the guy is addicted to his own product, and fucks it up, and they will end up getting killed in the end.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's very cool. There's a really good jazz composition in the middle of there. Yeah, it's just a really good opener.
Yeah, and it's so weird because like this is the only episode that has just Spike and Jet in it, because in the second episode they get Ein, and then in I think the third episode they get Faye, and then in the ninth episode they get Ed, and then even by the end of the show, Faye is still with Spike and Jet. So this is the only episode where you get an idea of like what the partnership between Spike and Jet was before everyone else ended up on the ship, which is definitely something that Spike brings up every now and then. How three of the things that he hates the most, which is
animals, women, and children.
Yeah, conniving women, animals, and children, and how they ended up all in the crew, like in the span of like,
a few weeks.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a great sampler of what the show is. And honestly, if the show would have been just Spike and Jet, like just with the general vibe this episode gives off, I feel like it still would have been like a very good show. Like there's definitely Faye and Ed and Ein like definitely help make up the identity of what the show is like as a whole product. But yeah, it definitely would have been a lot different without any of them.
Yeah, for sure. The other two episodes I want to bring up, and I find it really funny that two of my favorite episodes are actually towards the end, and they're back to back actually.
Which ones?
So the first one I want to talk about is Cowboy Funk, which is the one with the teddy bomber.
Okay.
I just think this episode is fucking hilarious because so it is Spike is trying to stop this mad bomber who sets teddy bears up that have explosives in it to blow up buildings. And throughout the entire episode, Spike is being outstaged by this literal cowboy on a horse named Andy. He's apparently just some rich dude who is just being a bounty hunter for the fuck of it.
But he looks like Spike.
Yeah, and everyone just keeps comparing them. Like, yeah, you guys are pretty similar. And Spike gets pissed off every single time so much that like he keeps like trying to track down the bomber, but only because he knows Andy's gonna be there, so he can like start a fight with him.
Yeah.
And so it gets to the point where like the bomber keeps showing up and he's like in the background. He's like, why isn't anyone asking me why I'm doing this?
Why isn't anyone paying attention to me? And like there's that bit there where Andy and Spike are just like, shut up, who are you? Like,
well, it's funny because Andy keeps mistaking Spike for the bomber.
Yeah.
Like he doesn't know the fucking dude in the bear. It's like he's even in a bear suit at a masquerade party, and they even sounds like, well, the bear suit's not very subtle.
Yeah.
So thinks he's a fucking bomber. And I like that they get so pissed off at each other. They start having a rooftop fight.
Yeah.
Where they're trying to murder each other.
Yeah.
So
hey, Teddy Bomber did make a lot of good points though.
He did, because like he starts I love how he gets taken away in the fucking police van, and the guard transporting him like asks him straight up like, so why were you doing all this? And he's like, God, I thought no one would ever ask. So he goes to this manifesto, but he's trying to like talk about capitalism, and now he's just trying to tear down these monuments to capitalism. And it's like, yeah, kinda, yeah, I actually kind of agree with him. Maybe not the best methods to do it, but the other episode that I really like is literally
before you get on that, I wanted to ask, did you catch who voiced Andy?
Yeah, it's Darren Norris.
Yeah, and that was so funny to find out. It's fucking the dude that voices Cosmo and Timmy's dad on Fairly Odd Parents. I had no idea. Like, I've known for a while, but when I found that out, like, I couldn't believe that he had done like a lot of anime dubbing. Like, in the past. And not only that, but he voices Vincent in the movie. He voices the villain of the movie.
Yeah,
yeah, and
it's very, to me, it's very obvious who he is when he voices Andy. I kind of forgot that he was Vincent in the movie, like until I looked at the cast credits. I'm like, oh yeah, that is Darren. But like he hides it really well for that character.
It just goes to show that his range is like, actually a lot better than I had thought.
Yeah.
So I was only really familiar with his Fairly Odd Parents roles.
Right.
And I guess even between those, like, you can tell the difference between Cosmo, Timmy's dad, and like, I think he does Jorgen on there too. So,
he does a few voices.
Plus, he's had like a lot of different live action roles on Nick too. I think he played Timmy's dad in the live action movies.
Yeah, he did.
And then I think he was on like Ned's Declassified. I think
he was a janitor.
Yeah. No, he's great though. Yeah, it's just so wild when you find out an actor like had done it. It was like finding out that Bryan Cranston had done dubbing in anime in the 90s.
He was a bunch of bad guys on Power Rangers.
Yeah, and he was also like in not Perfect Blue, but like something else, or maybe it was Macross or something. He was in something else. Yeah, yeah,
that's funny.
It was like that.
Now he's a highly respected actor in Hollywood.
Yeah.
You got to start somewhere, I guess.
Hey, listen though, even if you get like, your Emmys or your Oscars and getting paid a bunch, I mean, there's people like J.K. Simmons who's still like doing like
State Farm
voicing.
commercials.
Yeah, well, State Farm commercials, M&M commercials, and still doing like fucking dubbing in it. I'm not sure if he's doing dubbing in anime, but he's doing like voices in cartoons for sure.
Yeah, I think he just
So-
genuinely enjoys doing it. But
Yeah, probably it's an easier job than actually acting on screen. I would say probably.
The other episode I wanted to mention was literally the next episode called Brain Scratch.
So this is the episode I was talking about earlier with the TVs.
Yeah, so it's literally like they're dealing with a cult that believes that you can upload your consciousness, your soul, to a network so that you can be immortal, so you're freed from your physical body, to basically ascend to a higher plane. And it's literally a cult run by this guy. And the way you do it is you basically like put on a VR helmet and it kind of like it does this weird thing where it just like kind of fucks with your synapses, and like Jet tries doing it, almost like fucking dies.
Yeah, Ein has to bite him on the leg to get him to stop. Like,
exactly. Like almost puts him in a seizure or something.
Yeah.
But like I like the weird aesthetic that the cult takes. It's very much like this vaporwave horror kind of thing. And I like the reveal at the end where it turns out it's like this kid who was a hacker, but he's like in a coma. So he somehow like figured out how to invent this cult leader, and basically just did it because he was lonely in a coma.
Yeah. No, that's the other thing too, is that a lot of times in this show, like there are villains who are villains, but then there's also villains who are just the antagonist by circumstance. And when you find out that the motives behind like what they do and stuff, like it's I guess what I'm saying is that there's a lot of like morally gray like stuff in there too. It's like you can definitely understand why some of the characters in the show would do the things that they do. And while it's not always right, like, or justified, or sometimes it is, but,
I mean, honestly, more often than not, the Bebop crew doesn't actually finish their bounty.
Oh, no, they suck at their job.
Because either their bounty dies or they let them get away.
Yeah, no, they are actually very terrible bounty hunters.
Yes, they're very bad.
Which is the reason why every time that you see them, they're like just like they're on the verge of running out of food and money, or they are out of food and money because of that. Like they're very bad cowboys.
Yeah. So do you want to talk about the movie before we talk about the ending?
Because a lot of people, if you don't know out there, is that the movie actually does take place within the show. It happens between like episodes 22 and 23.
Yeah.
Which is for certain reasons has to be before the ending of the show, but we'll get into that.
Right.
Well, I guess we've actually already said that, Ed and Ein leave at a certain point in the show, and Ed and Ein are in this movie, so
right.
So that's why this takes place before certain episodes. But there's another big reason that we'll get into.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's talk about the movie for a bit.
Yeah, so I've known about this movie. I know it was released in theaters over here for like a limited time back in the early 2000s. But this is the first time I've watched it. I mean, it feels like a really like a longer version of the show, just with a little better animation. But it's basically Spike is trying to hunt this guy down who is planning to basically unleash a pathogen that will basically kill off human cells. He basically wants to murder all of Mars.
Yeah, like this is the highest stakes. This is the highest that the stakes ever go, like in the series.
Yeah,
it's a movie. Typically, when the shows do like a movie, like you want to, up the stakes, and like they definitely up the stakes on this one.
Oh yeah, because most of the time it's very low stakes, very interpersonal. But this one is like, nope, Vincent is planning to kill an entire city and potentially the entirety of Mars.
Yeah,
with this virus he's trying to unleash. But man, like the animation's really good. All the fight scenes are really good. Like I love the fight scene between Spike and Elektra. The fucking fight on the train is really good.
The fight at the end between Spike and Vincent, like
on the weird Eiffel Tower,
Yeah.
in the rain, in the dark. But they have like this really kind of like at some point they just do like bare knuckle box each other.
Yeah.
To the finish.
Another thing that the movie does, though, is that because it's afforded so much extra time than a regular episode, and I mean, there are certain episodes of the show that are two-parters, so you get like one plot that's like over 44 minutes. But for the movie, it's like, and it's like close to, it's shorter, like 2 hours, right?
Yeah, it's about 2 hours long.
Yeah. So what I've noticed that a lot of the movie is just them being able to expand on stuff that they can't really spend a lot of time on in the show, like being able to show more of like the side characters that show up and kind of their whole deal and their motives and stuff. And a lot of the movie also is just like
scenery.
Yeah, it's just scenery. Like a lot of it's just scenery, like characters going from location to location with like some great music. And just like just very chill, just sort of like just that whole sequence of Spike in Morocco.
In the Morocco section.
Yeah, where he's just like trying to find the dude that sells the beans and like just going around to different vendors and all that stuff. Like that's just and with the music and everything, it's just it's great.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I feel like a lot of the background characters in this movie do not match up with the Bebop designs because like they're a little more realistic drawn, and like there's like there's parts of the movie where they're basically just showing people during their daily lives. It almost looks rotoscoped.
Yeah, but you know what I found out? A friend pointed this out to me, is that like especially in that intro that they do, none of that is rotoscoped.
No, like it looks rotoscoped because of how smooth it is, but it's stylized enough that it's not.
Yeah, it's incredibly well done, and I could not believe when I found out that it wasn't rotoscoped.
Yeah,
like just the dude that worked on that sequence, I can't remember his name, but yeah, it was just incredible work.
Yeah.
But I think the other symptom of that, some character designs not lining up with other characters, is just a symptom of the show was released in '98 and the movie was released in 2001, so there was a bit of time that passed between production and stuff. So it's always that funny thing where if you track a show like when it starts and like all of its character designs for all the main characters and side characters, and then if that show lasts for like 20 years or something, and then you start to see, clearly there's different character designers working on the show now, because none of these characters, it's like if you watch like The Simpsons or like SpongeBob or anything now, like the character designs don't, like for characters that are new, like don't look anything like what they would have been looked like if they were designed like back.
Yeah, I mean it's like any show where like when it first starts out, the character designs are like a lot more rougher, a lot more looser, but it gets like really more clean and almost sterile as if you go long term, like those shows you mentioned.
Sure. But yeah, just for the Bebop thing, it's only like I'm not sure exactly when production started on the show or the movie, but at least between release, it's like 3 years. So I guess even then, that was enough time to a lot of anime was coming out where they're starting to kind of dip more into sort of transition out of that 90s sort of a lot of like big eyes and small mouths and stuff, and like they're starting to transition more into like realistic proportions, or more realistic, not entirely realistic, but yeah. But so it's funny how that's kind of evident there.
But the movie's good. Like there's a lot of parts of it where I was kind of maybe fading out a little bit, especially during the scenery parts, because it's like, okay, well, there's plot you should probably be getting to, but I was also vibing because it has really good music too, just like the series does. It has a great soundtrack.
Yeah.
Actually, I think there's a song on there that I wanted to pull, but I can't remember what it was. I might have to go look that up. But
was it the one from the intro, or was it a different one?
It's somewhere. I think if I'm thinking of the right one, it might have been in the show that I'm thinking. There's one song, I can't remember if it's in the show or the movie, that was like played towards the end of one of them. But I'll figure it out. I can't remember at the moment. But yeah, the movie is a great companion to the show. I think it fits right in with I watched it in what is said to be the canonical. I took a break from the show to watch the movie and then went back to the show.
Yeah,
And
during my recent watch, I did the same thing. After you mentioned that you did that, I was like, oh, that's probably a good idea. I'll do that too.
Yeah, so it fits right in. Like it doesn't really feel like it's too off from the show.
Yeah.
But also there's clearly more effort put into it. Not that Bebop is any slouch in any kind of department.
Oh no,
in terms of art or story or anything.
it's just that they were able to do so well with the budget they were given for the show that when they were given the budget for the movie, they were just able to make
it even better.
Even better. Yeah.
Right.
Like it accentuated it like more.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a great summation of what the show generally is, even if the stakes aren't always that high or anything, like as far as character beats and moments and general style of the show and the music, the style and everything. Yeah, no, it's just if you're gonna show anything that was Bebop to somebody who had never seen it before, the movie would probably be a good place to go.
Yeah, because I think I was reading that the director wanted it to be like, okay, if you watch the show, you're going to get a lot out of this, but also it's friendly to newcomers. You don't really need to have seen the show to understand it.
Yeah.
Which I totally agree. You don't have to, but you'll get a lot more out of it having watched the show.
Yeah, but it's not entirely like impenetrable for not having seen the show.
Right. So I guess we can go ahead and talk about the ending of Bebop, which
I think we should definitely talk about, not just like the last two-parter, but the episode before that, because, we already touched upon it a little bit, but Hard Luck Woman, which is the episode where Ein and Ed leave. And Faye discovers her her past is. Yeah,
so Faye's memory finally comes back to her. She realized that, she grew up on Earth. But what caused her amnesia and what caused her to go be put in cryosleep is she was exposed to that hyperspace or hypergate accident that basically fucked the Earth.
Yeah.
And she was put in a cryosleep for like 50 years. But so that the memory finally comes back to her, and she wants to go visit like her old home and like where she used to live, and like she ends up meeting one of her old friends, because her old friend recognizes her, and obviously Faye didn't age physically since she was in cryosleep, but her friend is an old woman now in a wheelchair. And it's weird because Faye at this point doesn't know who she is completely yet, but this woman like knows what happened to her, but like Faye kind of just runs off before really getting an explanation from her.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping that they would have spent a little bit more time, but I guess she was already so excited to kind of see like her home and stuff. But
I took it as like in that moment where she's meeting her childhood friend, and like clearly this childhood friend knows what happens to her. I think she kind of gets overwhelmed, and that's why she leaves initially. But like as her memory starts to come back, she wants to go back to Earth and like try to revisit her home, which she finds that the mansion that she apparently lived in has just been decimated. It's not there anymore. The place where it stood is still there.
Yeah.
But the house is no more anymore. But the other half of this episode is that they find out that Ed's dad has been looking for her, because they go to Earth and Ed leads. They go to Earth because like Faye wants to find this fountain that's in the Betamax video that she keeps watching, because she remembers it from her past. And Ed's like, oh yeah, I know where that is, totally. So they go to Earth, and they actually end up going to an orphanage that apparently Ed just kind of walked into one day, stayed for a while, and then peaced out.
Yeah.
So it's like they meet this nun that like knows Ed very well. And apparently like Ed's dad like came around looking for her at one point and left a message for her. And it turns out, yeah, Ed has a dad, and he's like a weird like surveyor who is like constantly going around and trying to map the ever-changing Earth, because the Earth keeps changing due to the meteor strikes happening all the time.
Yeah.
And being the father of Ed, he is very much her father in the sense that he's a complete scatterbrain.
Yeah, because it totally forgot that he had a daughter and not a son.
Yeah, he's like, thanks for taking care of my son. Or was it daughter? I don't remember.
Which I think is a reference to the fact that Ed was originally Ed was originally supposed to be a boy in the production of the show. In fact, her original design is reused for a character that you see for like 5 seconds in an episode. There's like these boys in a convenience store that are like stealing a porno mag or something.
Oh, okay.
And there's one of the boys there is Ed's original design, but they changed Ed to be a girl so that the gender ratio was more equal on the chip. Yeah, so I think that was a reference to that, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Well, also that just has to be, that's a running theme in the show too, is that people don't know if Ed is a boy or a girl.
Ed is very androgynous for the most part.
On purpose.
And it's fine. I think it's honestly a good contrast to Faye, who is very hyper feminine.
Yeah.
Visually anyway.
Edward is Edward.
Edward is Edward. But yeah, by the end of it, like Faye decides to go back to the ship, but Ed decides to stay on Earth and just go explore, maybe go find her dad again, because he kind of left in a hurry because another meteor struck. He's like, oh shit, we gotta go map that, and just leaves.
Yeah, it's kind of left a little
Ed with her.
Yeah, it's a little bit ambiguous, which fits in line with what we knew about Ed in that episode, or found out about Ed in that episode. Just like, she does a lot of, sticking around with the group for one time and then, going on to something else.
But yeah, Ed leaves as mysteriously as she came.
And Ein goes with her.
Yep. Ein decides he wants to go with her, and, they just walk off into the sunset.
And if we're talking about the songs that we're really enjoying the show, because the whole soundtrack to the series is great, but the song that plays at the end of that episode, it's called "Call Me, Call Me," and I love that track so much. Like, if we're discounting the intro and outro, that it might be like my favorite song of the show.
Nice.
It's really good, and it's just punctuated on these scenes of Ein chasing after Ed, and Faye, like laying down in the plot of her family's, house, and Spike and Jet just eating a ton of eggs because they eat their eggs, and then they have to eat Faye and Ed's eggs too,
right?
Because they're not there. And
right.
it's like one of my favorite sequences in the show.
Yeah. So I guess we can talk about the last 2 episodes, the 2-parter ending,
the finale.
I like this episode up until the I like the ending up until the very end, where I don't like.
Explain.
So the last 2 episodes is, we've encountered an old syndicate person that Spike knows. His name is Vicious. Very subtle name. He carries a crow on his shoulder.
And we see him a couple of times before. Like I mentioned, any of the stuff with the syndicate, like there's this 2-parter ending, and then like they show up like 2 other times, 1 or 2 other times in the show before this.
He shows up 1 episode, and there's like a 2-parter episode around episode 10 and 11, and then he shows up now. So basically, it's the resolution between Spike and Vicious, and Julia, who is this woman that when Spike left the syndicate, he was like hurt, and I think it was like a shootout or something. But basically, he was really injured. Julia was the one that found him and took him in and like nursed him back to health, and he fell in love with her.
That's Vicious's girl.
Yeah. So yeah. And Vicious has been like trying to take over the syndicate, because the syndicate is run by a bunch of old little dudes.
Yeah.
Brutally murders them. Takes over the syndicate, and Spike basically goes, because Julia is in danger because of all this. He goes back to Mars to pretty much settle things. And I love everything about, like, Spike is like, I need to do this. I don't care if I don't come back from this.
Whatever I need to happens.
Yeah, he needs to. He is in love with Julia. He has to go back for and settle things with Vicious. Unfortunately, Julia ends up dying in the middle of this. Which really spurs Spike to go on. And I love his fucking rampage through the syndicate compound.
Oh god, it's such an amazing, like that scene gives me goosebumps every time I see it, because you've got like the alternate version of Real Folk Blues playing over it, and like it's just amazing. Like it's all the action like just condensed into like the amount of time they have left in the episode.
Yeah. But where it loses me is when he gets to Vicious, is because I like the fight between them, but it is over so quickly.
Okay.
I just feel like it's so much buildup, and the fight is maybe a minute or two long, and then Vicious is dead.
And then Spike is dead.
Yeah, because then Spike leaves, and like he goes back out to the lobby of the building, and all these guys are ready to gun him down, and yeah, he says his final word, and it cuts to black, and I think during the credits, it shows like a starry sky, and it shows one of the stars going out. And that's a reference to this Native American character Spike constantly goes to visit. Basically just saying that or I don't think it was that one. I think it was like some side characters off that had nothing to do with them, but they were talking about the stars. And it's basically like saying that shooting stars are warriors come to rest because they finished what they needed to do. So he's basically saying every time a star goes out, that's somebody's gone.
Yeah.
So it is made pretty clear that Spike dies at the end, and I don't like that.
Apparently, they were contemplating leaving the ending more open-ended in case they ever wanted to return to the show, but I think Watanabe was very insistent that the show end the way that it did because he didn't want to be tied down to it like for season upon season. He kind of just wanted to do what he set out to do, and he wanted the finale to be final to kind of ensure that.
I've been totally fine had they left it ambiguous. Like Spike does his bang line, and then it cuts. And it is just left ambiguous to like, does Spike make it out of it, or does he get gunned down by everybody? Because man, he's like close to death anyway. But I don't like the definite confirmation that yes, Spike dies from this, and he does not go back to the Bebop because like it's just Faye and Jet waiting for him back at the ship. And obviously he doesn't come back from that.
Okay, I feel like that's a fair thing to not like. I personally really do enjoy the fact that it went that route. I do like that it is final, just because they do build up to that fact with like little allusions and stories here and there. Just the whole fact that Spike leaving the syndicate was him. He faked his death, so he's already been quote unquote dead before. He has a lot of close calls with death like throughout the show. And a lot of the reason why Spike is even still, around is because, Julia's around. Like, that's, that's like his, his love, like, that he was trying to fight for and stuff. And, there's a story that he tells about, a tiger that, lives 1,000 lifetimes and is reincarnated 1,000 lifetimes, who meets, another, cat who eventually dies, and the tiger is so stricken with grief, dies and doesn't come back. And with Julia dying during the course of that episode, I think it doesn't
really have a reason to keep going.
Yeah, which is why he even goes, and does the whole run through of the syndicate and everything anyway, because it's just. Yeah, it's not like, I mean, I was gonna say like a suicide mission, but I mean, I guess, like I said, like one of Spike's most well-known quotes is whatever happens, happens. And it's just like, he could live, he could die. Faye gives him a big spiel about him throwing his life away. And I think that's the story that Spike actually, the tiger story, he tells that to Faye, I think.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's what's meant to.
Yeah, and
to
it's
reference.
just, and yeah, no, I do like that it's final because it delivers. It has an emotional impact that I don't think would be there if it had resolved, or if it had not resolved in a way where it could be left like you don't know what happened to Spike. Could he be alive? Could he be dead? It's like it's just one of those things where I feel like certain products definitely. I don't think Bebop is any lesser for not going on for longer than it did.
Yeah, so honestly, I feel like part of the reason, and it's something I really had to think about the other day, is I think part of the reason why the ending bothers me so much is not so much against the show itself, but because I am used to watching more longer form anime where like, a show has several hundred episodes. So
Sure.
you get plenty of time with characters and like you really get to get in with like who they are, what their life is like, and like to get invested in and stuff. But lately, over the last year, I've watched a couple of shorter form animes. Two that specifically, I watched a show called Skate the Infinity, and I watched another one called Operate Ranman. And both of those are only 12 episodes long. And I find myself getting kind of down when it finally ends because it's like, I'm really invested in this world, but it's over now. And I'm not going to see anything else with these characters anymore. And obviously, Cowboy Bebop is 26 episodes, but it's still a lot shorter than what I'm used to. So I think it's just a part of me that's like, okay, this definite like, okay, I'm not going to see these characters anymore because obviously the main character is dead. So even if they did do any more with the show, that character is not there anymore. It's just like I think it's just a part of me that's just kind of bummed out that like we get such brief time with this world and these characters, and to have such a very definite end to it so shortly, I guess just kind of bums me out.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. But I mean, I think poetically and for the character, I think it makes sense. It's just not the kind of not happy ending that I wanted, just not the kind of ending I wanted. But
Sure.
I think if I'm honest with myself, it makes sense.
Yeah. No, it's I think of that it's a great ending for the show. Like just that whole sequence with like the song that plays over it, and yeah, going up to the night sky and seeing the star flicker out, Yeah, no, it's great.
Yeah. Matt, is there anything else that we should mention about this masterpiece before we wrap up?
I would like to talk about the upcoming live show for a little bit.
Yeah. And honestly, like, so we've known that Netflix is making a live action Cowboy Bebop show. It's only within the last week or two that we've gotten a little more information about it. It's coming out in November, like early November, I think. I don't know who a lot of the other actors in the show are, but we are getting John Cho as Spike. And while I have my concerns about like, can he pull off the character of Spike? They've shown everybody in costume, and he at least looks the part.
I really enjoy the costume design that we've seen so far and the general aesthetic. I think it looks great. The one thing, like, I know a lot of people are worried about the show for good reason, because Netflix traditionally doesn't have a terribly good track record with doing live action adaptations of anime.
They sure don't.
The Death Note movie they did. Well, I don't know. I mean, they've done bad ones, but they've also done ones that I've heard were good. I don't know, like they did like a Rurouni Kenshin one, right? That I thought I heard was pretty good.
I think they just have, that wasn't like Netflix produced. Those are just movies from Japan. They have the license too.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, they're doing Cowboy Bebop. And they're also doing One Piece, which I think is gonna be really weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, they like just showed like the front of the script for the first episode of that, and I'm like, I don't know how One Piece is going to work in live action, but like, if anything is going to be work in live action, Cowboy Bebop is pretty easy to do, I think. I mean, it's a space western. It's Firefly, I'm sure ripped off a lot of Cowboy Bebop.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The one, I was gonna say one, but I guess the two things that I find very promising about the upcoming live show is that Shinichiro Watanabe is a creative consultant for the show. And also Yoko Kanno and the Seatbelts, or I'm not specifically, but definitely Yoko Kanno is at least coming back to do the music for this show.
That's good.
So at the very least, the music is going to be incredible.
Yeah.
Everything else is still up to, speculation. But this is what I know about the show so far, is that this first season, at the very least, it's 10 episodes and they're hour-long episodes.
Nice.
So the Cowboy Bebop anime is 22-minute episodes, and every now and then they have a two-parter that's 44 minutes. So and as far as the casting news goes too, like they've made very well known that they were casting the parts for like Vicious and Julia and stuff too. I feel like a lot of this show is going to delve more, or it's going to at least pay more attention to the stuff with the Syndicate and sort of like Spike's backstory. I think in general, it's going to explore more of Spike and at the very least Jet's like backstories and stuff.
I think a lot of it's just going to be like we're going to cover probably a lot of the same ground, but we're just going to kind of flesh it out more.
Well, also the fact, I just found this out the other day, but apparently they are also doing tie-in novels and comic books as well. I'm not sure if they are specifically prequels, but they are set within the universe of the live action show.
Interesting.
So they definitely do want to expand upon. They definitely want to make this live action show like something more substantial than what they've attempted before with like any sort of live action adaptations of previously animated stuff. Because Cowboy Bebop is so important to a lot of people. I think they know that there's a lot riding on this one. So there's really, if you fuck this up, like they're never gonna hear the end of it. Like,
yeah.
Which I think helps that having Yoko Kanno doing the music and having Shinichiro Watanabe doing creative consulting on there is at the very least promising. Hopefully, I'm really hoping that the show is good. I do have, I don't want to say high hopes for it, but I have like a little more than middle hopes for it.
Yeah, and honestly, like I'm kind of okay with the casting so far. Like I said, I think John Cho looks the part of Spike. It'll be, we'll have to wait and see. They haven't even put out a trailer for this, but just to see like how he performs as Spike. I think it's a very interesting, but makes sense to make make Jet black.
His voice actor, his American voice actor is black.
Yeah, and it's like I've always like Jet is a white man in the show, and I thought it made me laugh in the show. They make a joke about how pale Jet is.
Yeah.
Once, and I'm like, I don't know how they're gonna do that joke in the live action version with Jet is black.
Probably won't.
No, but I do think it like it makes sense to make him African American. Faye is actually going to be performed by a Mexican descent actress. Because it's like I never really thought too much about the ethnicities of these people. Like I didn't think of them as Japanese or like American or anything. Or
all thing to know for sure was that Spike was Jewish.
Kinda, I guess.
Spiegel.
He's Spiegel.
I think it is confirmed.
Is he a Jew?
I think he is Jewish. I think that last name, I was almost certain. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, so I never really did any kind of like ethnic coding to these characters. They were just like people in space. But now that we're doing live action actors, I think it's kind of an interesting way they're taking it, and they're kind of like
I think they look great. Just from the shot that we saw them all in costume and everything, I think they look great.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's just the performances that everyone's a little wary on, which is understandable.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about, we haven't seen any indication that Ed is in the show yet, and I feel like
I think they said that Ed will be there. And I think everyone keeps reminding me, was like, remember everybody, Ed didn't show up till like episode 9 of the show.
That was the thing too, is that Ed didn't show up until 9th episode, so they could just be saving Ed for very late in the show. I'm just more wondering how they are going to do Ed, because Ed is very much a character that works in anime. In live action, I don't know. I don't know how they'll approach it.
I think they're going to have to tone Ed down a little bit, but I think they can get a very eccentric teenager to play Ed.
We'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah.
At the very least, I think everyone, even haters, can agree that they cast Ein perfectly.
I saw a video the other day. It was like the characters at a table read. And they're like saying this character, like John Cho is playing Spike, this character is playing Jet, and then it gets to Ein is the fucking corgi they have sitting at the table read desk, and they give him a bowl and it has Ein's name on it.
I think there was a big rumor, and a lot of people were just speculating that they're not even going to use a corgi, they're going to use like a different breed of dog or something. It's like no.
How could you not use a corgi?
Yeah.
It's so Ein it has to be a corgi.
Yeah, and Ein is a corgi, so
Yeah,
that's one less thing you have to worry about in the live action show.
There you go. Well, guys, again, if you've never watched Cowboy Bebop before, it is a quintessential classic anime. It is almost, if you are into anime at all, it is almost required watching. And I feel really bad that it has taken me this long to actually watch it in its entirety. But yeah, it is just a great show. And while I have a problem with its ending personally, it is so stylish. Characters are so well written and charming. It's just a great show all around, and I would highly recommend it to even if you're not into anime. I think it's a good show to watch.
Yeah, high recommendation. It's incredible. Watch the show, watch the movie. Just it's an all-time classic, just in cartoons and anime, and just all together.
Yep. And then a few months here, we'll see if Netflix just royally fucks it up.
And who knows? We might even cover that too. Keep an ear out for that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see if it's if it's worth talking about, but we'll see. All right, guys. Well, that will do it for us today. Thank you all for listening. Let us know in our various socials and comment sections what you think of Cowboy Bebop. If you are in the mindset that this is an all-time classic, or if you royally hate it, everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But we're gonna get out of here. But everyone, stay safe out there. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
See ya, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening. You can find all the links to our social media pages in the episode description. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and join our Discord. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcasts. The Ink and Paint Club is happy to be a part of the Geekly Grind Podcast Network. We'll see you next time.